What's up, guys? So today we have a very special Robbie's Reviews. Sitting behind me is the 2020 Chevrolet Corvette, also known as the C8 Stingray. And I just want to thank my friend James, who is the owner of the C8. He's allowed me to take the car out on the road today to give it a review and to see what it's like to drive. Let's go check it out. All right, guys, here she is, the 2020 Chevrolet Corvette C8 Stingray. This example is finished in the lovely ceramic matrix gray. It's actually kind of a lighter metallic gray, almost primer color. There's a lot of metal flake in the paint. It's not really a sunny day today here in Miami. However, the color does look great nonetheless. So many of you may know that currently in 2020, the C8 Corvette is really struggling with production. It's hard for Chevrolet to keep up with the orders and with all the things going on in the world right now, especially the US. It's been hard for them to keep up with customer orders and dealer demand. But my friend James here was actually able to get a very special VIN of the C8. It's actually VIN number 494. And this is actually a CTF vehicle, or captured test fleet. So it's not exactly pre-production. However, it's not really a full production vehicle like that would be sold to a regular customer. However, nothing is going to be different on a full production C8 than this car. This vehicle is really just part of a fleet that Chevrolet gives to dealers or to themselves to just test out on the roads for extended periods of time. In my opinion, it is a full production vehicle. I have sat in a customer C8 and got to play with everything inside, and this is identical. This is the first time that I'm actually driving the C8, and so far, even though it only took me about 5 minutes to get to this park from where I met James, I am extremely impressed. And as many of you may already know, for the first time in 70 years, the Corvette is now a mid-engine car. It has the engine behind the front seats, and it is a 6.2 liter LT2 that in the base form, or the non-Z51, which this is a Z51, it would normally make 490 horsepower and 465 pound-feet. However, this being a Z51 and also with the 2LT package, produces 495 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. And that is really just due to a performance dual-mode exhaust that comes with the C8 with the Z51 package. However, the Z51 package adds a lot more than a sport exhaust and 5 horsepower and pound-feet of torque. You actually get different wheels, larger upgraded brakes, for better stopping power, the Brembos. You get little aero bits around the front, like this chin spoiler, the front splitter here, and the other little bits around the front. And in the back, you actually get a more aggressive diffuser with the Z51 package. Now, some of you may have seen pictures on the internet of the C8 with a high downforce wing, or the much larger rear spoiler here. This one's kind of like the middle of the road one. Normally a base model or non-Z51 C8 will come with a tiny little ducktail or trunk spoiler thing. This is more of an actual wing. And as you can see, it's shaped to perfectly clear the trunk here. That is also actually the hood, or the where the engine bay is. So we'll get that open in a second so you guys can check out the engine and the rear trunk space. And actually, being mid-engine, the C8 also has a front trunk. So I've got the key here. You can see it's a pretty modern key. It's not too bulky, but it is thin enough to go in your pocket or maybe even in your wallet. It's got the Corvette logo here. Actually, another one on the side here. Another little Corvette logo. And all the buttons up front, you have panic, opening for the rear trunk, opening for the front trunk. And yes, since it is a mid-engine car, you do get a front trunk. And of course, you have your unlock, lock, and then this in the middle is for your remote start. You just tap that twice. We'll do that in a little bit. But right now, we're going to open the front trunk, so you tap that twice. It opens up. There's no latches or anything. It's kind of like a two-step process. And as you can see, there's plenty of luggage space here, plenty of storage space, put some groceries or bags and stuff, or a carry-on if you do want to take this to the airport. I wouldn't, but it's really, really accessible. And then you have the wiper fluid here, things like all the coolant, fans and stuff. And it's kind of funny. So since this is a trunk and it's over a certain size, it is required by law to have a easy escape button that kind of glows in the dark. So you can see here, it's a little image of a person escaping from a C8. I think that's pretty funny. And actually, if I put the key back in my pocket, close the front trunk here, there is actually a little secret button just under the headlight. I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but if you reach your hand under, there's a little rubber button, and so it's kind of like a hidden button, and it's really just the smartest way they could integrate a way to open up the front trunk without having to go to the key every time or to the button inside the vehicle. So just a cool little touch there. And another cool thing is I love how instead of just having a smooth line here, they kind of have the jagged line here, the design by the Corvette badge. That's one thing I want to talk about too, is this is a very controversial vehicle when it comes to exterior styling. Now, some people, when they first came out, they didn't like the proportions of the C8. They didn't like how the front looked a little bit higher than the rear, or I know it's weird to say that, but it wasn't like a really raked effect. To be honest, when the C8 first came out, I did have mixed feelings and I didn't really know what to think about it because I was so used to all the previous generations of Corvette. C4, C5, C6, C7. And actually, I have been fortunate enough to drive every generation of Corvette, C1 through now C8. And this is really the first time in several decades that the Corvette is a complete new car. It's not kind of just building off of previous generations as far as technology goes and driving dynamics. It, in my opinion, is now a true mid-engine sports car. Actually getting pretty close to supercar numbers with a 0 to 60 of 2.9 seconds. So along with being mid-engine now and having the engine over the rear wheels, thus giving it far superior traction over the previous generations of Corvette, you also have the 8-speed dual clutch transmission that replaced the outgoing 7-speed manual transmission and the 8-speed transmission, which they weren't bad transmissions. The manual one was fun. If you got a Z06 with the 8-speed automatic, it was great. Sometimes it liked to lag or kind of forget what gear it was in and kind of get stuck. But I assure you that the dual clutch in this C8 is so amazing. It is comparable to PDK in the Porsches and the 911s and what have you. The dual clutch, the 7-speed dual clutch transmission in the Ferraris, the 9-speed dual clutches in all the new AMGs. It's really just an amazing transmission. It's a joy to live with. Having it in the track mode or touring mode, it always knows what to do and never forgets what gear it's in. And right now I am loving the new C8. All right, so right now we're gonna open up the rear trunk area here. You can either use the button on the key, the button inside the car, or you just reach under here, it pops up. Plenty of space for your fingers to get in and lift it. And right away you probably noticed, just like I was saying before, this car has 2 trunks since it's mid-engined. And when you consider that with a mid-engine sports car, you have a pretty sizable trunk on both ends of the car, it's really not bad. You could fit easily 2 golf bags here, a full load of groceries. And you guys probably see these little mounting points over here on either side of the trunk. That's actually for the removable Targa roof or Targa top. So we're gonna take that off in a little bit and I'll show you guys what the car looks like without the top on. But there's not many cars where you open the trunk and you can see the engine. So there it is, the 6.2 liter LT2 V8. It is naturally aspirated, of course, and there is going to be a Z06 coming out that there's talk that it's going to be twin turbo and other things like that. So, but this variant is the Z51, so it does make the 495 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. You see the rear clamshell here is all one solid piece. You have these struts there. And it's really just a nice thing to look at. I mean, you can get a carbon fiber dress-up kit and some LED lights up there by the above the rear window. However, it's really just add-on things and you can always add on later. As far as the actual package goes, with the engine, it's nice and down low. You have these strut braces here. Really nice packaging. They did a good job. They got the rear window there. While driving the C8 over here, I didn't notice any kind of weird noises or any extreme heat behind the seat. A lot of times the mid-engine cars can actually heat up the rear bulkhead and can feel like you have the heated seats on permanently. However, that's not the case with the C8. It is a very, very well engineered car. All right, so right now we're gonna close up the rear hatchback here. And instead of just putting your hand on the paint, you actually have a little cutout here, a little handle. And similar to other Corvettes in the past, you just let it drop and it is soft close. So you don't ever have to slam the rear trunk here. And continuing on with the back of the C8, you got that, of course, more aggressive diffuser with the Z51 package. And many of you guys may have noticed what's different from the C7 and C6 and C5 generations is it no longer has a central quad exhaust layout. It now has still quad exhaust, however, it is a dual setup on either side of the bumper, making the car look much wider. And instead of the round or oval exhaust tips, they're actually squares or more rectangles. And it really just looks like a fighter jet. It's an amazing looking rear end, and you have the cooling vents. There are no vents on this car that are not functional. Everything's functional. You even have the parking sensors built into this one. Of course, this car has parking sensors, backup camera. And if we move above the rear window here, you actually have this housing here with a camera. That isn't another backup camera, that is actually for the rear view mirror. It's a technology that GM invented many years ago and they've really perfected. So you can see the back window here with the engine and everything. And you might think that it's really not that great seeing out of the rearview mirror. So GM thought of that, and with the 2LT package, which is about a $7,000 option, it's actually $2,000 more than the Z51 package, which is $5,000. So once we get in the car in a little bit, I'll show you that. There's all kinds of adjustability when it comes to the rearview mirror, which quite literally gets activated with the flip of a switch. And coming down to the taillights here, we have yet another major evolution of the Corvette's taillights. The C7 kind of started this rectangular design, or the angled, edgy, modern design, whereas other Corvette models always had the round or oval quad taillights. So you have the key here. If you unlock it, you can see, well, we'll do the hazard lights in a second. I just want to show you guys. It's kind of like a reverse sequential turn signal. So the reason for that is in the United States, there's a law where your turn signal has to take up a certain amount of real estate on the taillight. It has to be a certain size while it's flashing and indicating. So on the Mustangs, they have sequential turn signals just like the Corvette C8 does. However, the one part of the Mustang sequential turn signal is large enough and therefore passes. However, the C8 here has to have a reverse sequential turn signal. So it starts out full size and then it sequentially goes to the left until it just disappears into the next cycle. And you probably see here the DRLs, or daytime running lights, are on here. And believe it or not, the turn signal is just this one part up here. The reverse lights are here, and then this whole other part of the taillight is either just designed with the gloss black housing here and the DRLs. So it's pretty funny. And then in the middle, you have the Corvette badging right below the third brake light, as well as the Stingray badge. And one small touch that the C8 carried on from the C7 is you have this kind of defroster look here on the back window. However, if you look closely, they're little Corvette logos that kind of fade down the window and get smaller. It's a nice little touch. And also, I love how all the trim on this car is a kind of a metallic black. I'm sure that just goes with the 2LT package or even the Z51. The same goes for the very, very aggressive engine intakes here on the side. That was kind of a controversial design cue of the C8 that a lot of people loved or hated. And then you have the little gas door here. And actually, coming around to the mirrors, you have the indicators in the mirrors. And you have the GM blind spot monitoring system. So there's a sensor in the taillight right here that monitors any cars in your blind spot. And if any are approaching at a high rate of speed, the blind spot monitor comes on a lot sooner. And the same goes if it's slower, it'll come on at the regular time. And actually, what a lot of cars have been doing, like the Escalades, Tahoes, and Camaros and stuff, if you're idle in traffic and a car is approaching on the left or right side, the corresponding blind spot monitor will actually light up. And there's actually one more thing I want to point out with the mirrors. So I've personally never seen this on another car, and this is due directly to visibility issues. If you look closely, the driver's side mirror column or stock is shorter than the passenger side. That's just because the way that the driver sits in the car, the A-pillar would come down and block the view to the mirror if it was the same length as the driver's side. So you can kind of see it here. So the passenger side is a little bit longer, and at first glance of the front of the C8, you really don't notice that. I sure didn't the first time I saw the C8. It's something you may not even notice if you're driving the car and have owned it for a while. James actually knew about it. I thought it would be funny to tell him. It's really just a cool little Easter egg that you either notice or you don't. And I figured now's a good time, while the weather's still looking good, to take the targa top off. So first we're going to open the rear trunk over here. Now, let's see if I can do this while holding the camera. Inside, you actually have these latches here under the sun visors. Pull them out. And if you guys are wondering, the button to open the door is actually under here. It's kind of a little panel here. Corvettes for years now have had electronically activated doors. So to get out of the car, similar to the C7 and C6, you have a button here. And if the battery dies while you're inside the car, you actually have an emergency lever or switcher you pull and the door disengages. Same goes for the outside. If you actually look up in here, there's a little keyhole there. You can actually just unlock the car. So we've got the other latch for the targa top here under the driver's side visor. Pull that. And we have a third latch at the rear here. And just like that, the roof comes off. See, it's not very heavy at all. Although I definitely can't do this with the camera in the hand, so I'm gonna put the camera down real quick. All right, so I've got the roof in here. It just goes in with some guides, and it kind of just clips in at the bottom. And you do have some space on the sides here, although I had to take a little bit of stuff out. Just gonna do some pictures real quick of it. But you kind of get the feeling that the rear trunk here is only for the car's roof, which is the case with a lot of roadsters and target top vehicles. So right now we're gonna close it. And it is soft close. And as you can see, the C8 really looks like a different car without the top on. The target top is now stored in the trunk area right behind the engine. And you're now ready for some open top cruising. And the overall silhouette of the vehicle really doesn't change. You still have the same shape, similar to McLaren Spyders. They're hardtop convertibles, but it's really the same effect here. The general roof line or body line kind of continues here. And there actually is a hardtop convertible version of the C8 Corvette. I think it looks a little different in the back. I think the engine cover is a little different. They had to have a space for the roof to kind of fold into. However, I really do prefer the target top. It is more of a manual operation. There's a little bit more labor involved, but it's really not that bad. 3 little latches, and you just store the target top, which is very light, easy to carry with one person. You put it back here, and that's it. And if it starts raining, you can't put the top on or as quickly as a regular power convertible, but you can pull over somewhere, and it's real easy to do, even if you're by yourself. And right now I'm actually going to show you guys the LED headlights, as well as those cool sequential turn signals, as well as the taillights. So step in real quick. All right, so we're going to put the ignition on. You have the headlight controls here on the turn signal stock. And you may have noticed, due to the design of the interior, there's a lot of limited space, hence this massive row of buttons, which we'll get to later. Things like the hazard lights had to move up here, so you have the button there. Then we can get out using the electronic button here. And first you notice those really cool sculpted indicators, turn signals on the mirrors here. They're kind of translucent here, nice and bright. Coming around to the front, you have half of the DRL that stays white. The other half is the amber, which is a switchback. And of course you have the LED projectors. They're nice and bright. And with any modern headlight technology, it either is going to be bi-xenon HID or LED projector. I don't believe these headlights are active, like swiveling around like similar to Mercedes and Audi and BMW, but they definitely get the job done. Now coming around the back, probably some of the strangest taillights. You have these huge DRLs or running lights. You have the very small turn signal. It's kind of reverse sequential. And of course the reverse light will be there. It is a cool look though. It's very, very distinctive. All right, so now we're going to step inside the C8, check out the interior. Actually first, because it looks like it's going to rain in a little bit, I'm going to put the target top back on. So see you in a second. All right, so we've got the target top back on. Now we're going to turn off the hazard lights, put the headlights back to auto. Probably hear the ignition going, so now we're going to shut the door here. The push start. Get a nice little chime when the car turns on. And you have one-touch power windows. And right now we're out of the South Florida summer heat into that lovely AC, where actually the car has, I think, read the ambient temperature. Put the cooled seats or ventilated seats to level 2. Got the AC on. And while we're here, we might as well start with this massive row of buttons. When the first press release came out for the C8 Corvette, there was a lot of questions and people scratching their heads looking at this row of buttons here. I can assure you that its sole purpose is for the climate control and only the climate control. So starting up here, you have the driver's side. It's a 2-zone AC. So you have your temperature here, and it reflects on the screen as well. You have your heated and cooled seats, so they're heated and they're cooled. You can sync the driver and the passenger zones. You have your automatic climate control, the front defroster, the rear defogger, and all that. You could control the direction the air comes out. Here's the fan speed. Put the seats down a little bit, it's a little bit loud. You have the power for the climate control to turn off, the AC, recirculator, defrosters again. And then you have the passenger side here. So since the seat little icons are facing to the right, these are the passenger controls, and they have their own screen down here. So it's very straightforward. It's really not in the way of anything. The design goes with this little central tunnel here, and as you guys can probably see, it is a very, very driver-centric layout, similar to the old MK4 Toyota Supra and even the RX-7. That kind of comes to mind. You have the central tunnel here. The two cup holders are actually pretty decent sized. You have a cover here if you don't want to look at it. The central infotainment screen faces the driver. It's really not something the passenger can easily see. Then you have the driver information display over here, the full central gauge cluster. There's no more physical elements like the older Corvettes. You have a couple little screens on the side for little icons like seatbelt and I'm sure check engine light and all that stuff, traction control. And moving back to the steering wheel here, it is really more of a rectangle than an actual wheel. So it's much more squared off than Corvettes in the past. It really looks like the steering wheel from an actual like race car, because race car steering wheels are really squared off at the tops and the bottoms. The sides are almost flat. There's really not a lot of roundness to it. Fully leather wrapped with the white contrast stitching. I really do love the two-spoke design here. Kind of floats in the middle here with the open on the bottom, so you can control it, especially if you're on a racetrack. You have the large paddle shifters, which unfortunately are fixed to the steering wheel, so they move with the wheel. They're not on the actual steering column. However, that's a small gripe. They're nice and big, they're easy to get to, and a lot of times I find myself just letting the dual clutch transmission do its thing, especially in the track mode, which I'll show you right now. So you have this kind of a hand rest here. If you're used to being in a manual car and you just want to have someone to put your hand, this is kind of like that. It's a little bit more of a durable material. You have the Corvette logo embossed in there with the white contrast stitching. And you'll notice here it says mode. So the mode selector wheel is down here, so you're really easy to get to with your fingers. And if we go to the screen here, you can actually see, if we go to the left, we enter my mode. So this is really kind of the individual mode. This is just the settings that James has set that he prefers to drive in. And the car will actually go into my mode and remember it every time. And if we go one more to the left, we actually enter weather mode, just kind of like rain mode or wet road mode, something like that. And then if we go to the right too, we have touring mode, just kind of like comfort mode, closed exhaust valves. The transmission will always get to the highest available gear with as little RPM as possible. Next up is sport. Changes the design of the screen a little bit, gets a little bit more aggressive. There's some more red accents. And definitely my personal favorite so far is track mode. So in my mode, you can actually have all these settings. I'm assuming the gauge cluster design as well. However, I just like the screen the most, so I just leave it in track mode. And there's actually a special feature that comes with all vehicles equipped with the Z51 package. You have here a little Z on the steering wheel. It's called Z mode. So you can press that, and it automatically goes into whatever mode you set. So this is the screen that James has set. You get the most aggressive settings, or at least as aggressive as you set. And it's really for if you get onto a fun road or you see a stretch on the highway, you just want to quickly change the car instantly to go to that mode. And actually it shows in the heads-up display up there as well. Not sure if you guys can see that. There is a gauge cluster, little miniature gauge cluster reflecting from the screen here. And actually if we go to race mode, you actually get the a similar design. So you have the shift light, and we're in park right now. It shows the speedometer. So all the essentials really for the racetrack. You have your performance timer 0 to 60, and using the controls on the steering wheel here, you can cycle between audio, maintenance, options. You can press simplify, and really just kind of minimizes the screen display, and then you can press any button to return. So you have your PSI, oil pressure, transmission temp, water temps and all that, tire pressure. And if we go back here, we have the performance, and scrolling up and down you have your lap timer, G meter, which I really like. Leave it on the performance timer for now. And now here you've just got your favorite buttons, audio buttons. Here's for your cruise control. I'm not sure if adaptive cruise control is an option on this car. I know it has things like lean keep assist and the blind spot monitor, but I'm pretty sure that's just an option, maybe with a 3LT package. This vehicle has the 2LT. And on the side here you have the kind of an old school design. You have the headlight controls on the turn signal stock. And over here you have the automatic wiper controls. And the steering wheel is automatic and telescoping, so you can move it up and down, back and forth with this. And coming over to this side, you have probably the smallest air vents I've ever seen. and they have these little toggles here. You can use a control up and down, left and right. You have your heads-up display controls. You can change the info, brightness. So if you go to info, kind of cycle between the speed limit, all that. I like it on the with the little shift light there. This vehicle is equipped with the Bose Performance Series audio system, which I listened to a little bit and it sounds amazing. I love the speaker grills, the laser cut. You have the memory seats in there. The door panels of the door cards are just so nice. They're fully leather wrapped with the white contrast stitching. You have all these brushed aluminum accents here. You have the automatic windows and mirror controls. Coming around the very sculpted and futuristic looking dashboard, you have all these cuts and little valleys here. You have a big center channel speaker up there as part of the audio system. Coming around to the infotainment, actually here's your traction control button, and probably one of the best features that this car is available with is a front camera system. So you press this button, and on the infotainment you have a very crisp high definition display of the corners of the car and the top down. So and if you do have to pull this car into a spot for some reason, you're never going to hit that front splitter, and that's the optional one that comes with the Z51 package. So, and coming down to the driving controls here, you have your park button. We're in P right now. To go into reverse, foot on the brake, you actually have to lift this up. You get your reverse camera that comes on, reflects reverse in the race mode here. And then you have a bunch of different options when it comes to the cameras. You have your wide angle. You can zoom in to the front of the car here. You get another view here. And of course you have your guidance lines, turn on or off. Leave it on this view for now. And they're active guidance lines, they move with the wheel. And it is a very high definition display, which is a lot more than I can say about previous GM vehicles that I've driven. Now, really the only two physical buttons on the infotainment system is the volume knob and the home button. So home button obviously takes you home. You touch here, it takes you out of the camera. Oh, well, we're in reverse, so put it in neutral, you can hit the N there, or to drive, you can pull up D, and you still get your cameras. And you have M for manual mode, and P puts it in park. The camera goes away. So it is touchscreen. So this is the latest generation of Chevrolet's infotainment system. You have the home button here. If you press home again, actually takes you to your audio settings. You can connect a device. You have little hotkeys down here for your phone, navigation, and actually your AC and everything. If you go back home, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, Wi-Fi hotspot, settings. You can change the display, sounds, calibrate the touchscreen, updates. You can update it. You see what running applications there are and close them. You have a user here. Of course, that's James. This is his car. Then you have your apps: Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, audio, climate, nav, phone, My Chevrolet. These are just all your different apps. Vehicle. This is where you can configure Z mode. So James has engine sound set to track, steering, sport, powertrain, and something I've never seen before when it comes to vehicles with an individual setting or personal setting is your brake response. So you can choose to have your brake response in Tour, Sport, or Track. So it says brake response adjusts the brake pedal response for specific driving conditions or style while in Z mode. So we'll leave that. You also have My Mode, which is you configured. It's not as many options. It's kind of just like your canned little comfort mode that you go to when you want to cruise around if you're daily commuting. And climate, air quality, collision detection systems. You have park assist, side blind zone alert. So if you turn it off, I think it'll show if you turn it on. So you get turned on there in the mirror. Rear cross traffic alert. It's pretty cool. Park assist alert. Go back. Comfort and convenience. Reverse tilt mirror, that is off. Remote mirror folding, that was off. Definitely put that on. See lighting. Vehicle locator lights. There's no kind of crazy ambient lighting or anything in this car. Power door locks, seating position, teen driver mode, which is something every car like this should have. It allows you to assign keys with customizable restrictions. So if you have a kid who's driving your car, he's not going to wrap it around that pole. Same goes for valet mode. And see if we go to apps. Actually, we'll go home. This vehicle has the 2LT package. I'm not sure if it's included or if this is a separate option. However, it does have the PDR or Performance Data Recorder. And it just says a little warning here. Okay. Now this is something that's really meant for racetracks. So you can have overlays. You can see what your best lap is. So you can beat it. You can see where you should have hit an apex or if you should have braked sooner. So a lot of cars have this. I mean, it's an expensive option, especially on McLarens. But what all those cars don't do is have their performance data recorder double as a dash cam. So you can actually have it set as a dash cam. So right now video recording quality is low, we'll put it on 1080p. Now I actually brought a SD card with me so I can record some of my own video with the PDR. So you have the button here for the glove box. You actually have a little slot here for a SD card. So we'll do that in a little bit. That'll be kind of cool. And aside from the recording quality, you could have automatic recording set on, audio recording, definitely want that on. Automatic recording, we'll leave that alone for now. SD card information, there's nothing in there right now, but it says there's no SD card, so it'll tell you the storage. If we go to recordings, there's nothing there right now. PDR, you can actually have a video overlay. So you can either have nothing, sport, track, or timing, and you can actually preview it. So with sport, this is what your video will look like. It has the RPMs there. Also, that's another thing, the graphics and how spot on the timing is with the throttle input. I mean, it's such a fast revving, high revving engine. I mean, and especially right now in track mode, it's you guys will see once we get out on the road. This car is really something else. And go back, and then track mode, preview. That's pretty cool. It shows an actual track. I'll probably end up leaving it on sport since we'll be on the street. Not doing anything too crazy. We're just going to get some cool footage with the driving, and we'll just exit out of here for now. And we'll leave it on the PDR because I do want to use that in a little bit. And continuing through the interior, of course, you have your center console. Pretty decent storage. Now back here you have a wireless charger. And I'm not sure if you guys can make this out, but it's very subtle. There is a Corvette logo on the rear speaker here. So it says Corvette Stingray. And then you can see the Corvette logo. You have to look at just the right angle. I'm really not sure if you guys can see it, but it's a nice little touch. Of course, one thing that I have been slowly getting used to is the engine behind me in a Corvette. Usually you have a lot of car in front of you when you're in a Corvette and you're kind of sitting on the rear axle almost. This car you're sitting more in the middle, or really more towards the front, to be honest. However, the driving dynamics and the overall feel, the weight distribution and everything, and the total just balance of it is really a lot better than the C7, C6 and so on. And I don't know if you guys remember the little rear camera I showed you guys earlier above the rear window, above the engine. So for years now, Chevrolet has been perfecting this technology of having just a camera, take all the obstructions out, and as you can see, you really can't see much. Actually, if I flip it, you can see the visibility is not that great. It's very dark, you can't see through. So with the literal flip of a switch, you get this very high definition display. You can actually adjust it here. So you can change the brightness, and you can actually zoom in. So pretty cool. And you can actually tilt it as well, just like a real mirror. So we'll leave it just above the back wing here. Press it again, do brightness, press it again, it zooms in. So it's just really cool. Definitely, it's taken a while to get used to. It is weird seeing nothing behind you, but it's a very, very high definition display. I have no problem using it. And now that I'm inside the car and I'm aware that the passenger side mirror stock is longer, you really can see it. This side is a little shorter, and that side is a tiny bit longer. And while I don't really feel that it would have been an obstruction if the stock was the same length as this one, I can see how some people, depending on their seating position, the A-pillar may get in the way. So that's just a thing they had to overcome, but they did a good job. And continuing around, these are actually the touring seats or comfort seats. Very heavily bolstered, but I'm a bigger guy and I fit really nicely in them. You have the white contrast stitching, perforations for the heating and cooling functions. You have the torch red seat belts that I love. You have the Corvette logo, the big fixed headrest. There is a seat available called the GT2 seat, and it's got a carbon fiber, it's basically a carbon fiber bucket. It's cool, it's got the exposed carbon, but it's really not comfortable. It's not great, especially since this car was recently on a long road trip. Currently has about 1,200 miles on it, which is just broken in, so we'll be able to use launch control and stuff. And like I was saying earlier, with the way that the interior is designed, they actually had to move around a lot of things, and the fact that the roof can come off, they can't have your usual controls in the ceiling and stuff. So you actually have the reading lights here, the LED reading lights. You have all your controls for OnStar here, the hazard lights, I'm not really sure what that does. I think it's a tow mode or something, passenger airbag. And you may notice that there isn't a cigarette outlet or cigarette lighter. Well, there is a wireless charger for your phone near. The cigarette lighter is actually all the way under the dashboard. I don't know if you guys can see that. It kind of opens up. Let me see if I can open it up. Yeah, so it's just a cover there. And along with the air vents here, you also have one of these very skinny air vents under the infotainment display. You have two more for the passenger, and the same controls over there, as well as memory settings, two-person memory for the driver and the passenger. And honestly, that really is about it for the interior of the C8 Corvette. There's a lot to it, and at the same time, there really isn't a lot to it. It's simplified where it needs to be. There's a lot of all the technology, I would say, is definitely in these two driver displays here. It's a very driver-centric layout. And while this row of buttons for the climate control is controversial, having been with the car for a couple hours now, it's really not bad. They're easy to get to. You can never really hit a button by mistake. I mean, if you have to look over for a second, you can easily see in your field of view. So it's definitely in your reach, and for the passenger too. And I guess Chevrolet figured the passenger doesn't need to be touching the volume knob and stuff anyway. It'd be very hard for them to reach over like that. Chevrolet definitely designed the interior of the new Corvette with just the driver in mind and really not a passenger. It is a two-seater car after all, so most of the time you really won't have a passenger. And that should do it for the interior portion of this video. So now we're going to go outside, get a start up and some revs. And then we're going to put our memory card inside the performance data recorder, the PDR, take it out on the street, set our GoPros up inside the car, and I'll have a camera running on the outside too to show the exhaust sound. And we'll see what the Corvette is like to drive. So let's go check it out. Alright, so right now we are driving the 2020 Chevrolet Corvette C8 Stingray. So right now we're just sitting in midday Miami traffic. I don't know if you can hear the turn signal chime. It's actually very distinctive. About to do a turn here. I have it in race mode with traction control off, or competitive mode, so we'll do a little launch control in a little bit. Give it a little acceleration here. So I know that's only 495 horsepower. However, with this thing being mid-engine, you got all the weight on the rear wheels to ensure maximum traction. It's not a heavy car at all. It really puts its power down very well. That 8-speed dual-clutch transmission is a joy to live with. The shifts are lightning quick. The suspension that comes with the Z51 rides very supple. It's definitely compliant. It's not too rough, but it's not too soft at the same time. This doesn't have the magnetic ride. That's an option, although I don't feel it's really necessary. I've experienced it in the older Z06 as well as the ZR1 and the ZL1. However, the Z51 suspension is amazing. I mean, the car responds like nothing. This squared off steering wheel is great. It actually reminds me a lot of the LaFerrari steering wheel, or just a full-on race car. So honestly, the brakes work well. This has the upgraded Z51 brakes. And I'm going to try launch control in a little bit. Supposedly the 0 to 60 is 2.9 seconds with the Z51 package. Now, I don't know what kind of tires are on here, and I don't know if these streets in Miami are really the best quality to get a lot of grip. But definitely up to the challenge, and we're going to try it here in a little bit. So right now I'm just pulled over real quick. Got my memory card. Going to open the glove box, pop the memory card in here in the slot. That. Just waiting for the PDR to register the memory card. I don't know if we have to go back or what we have to do. I think we have to just go back into the PDR. Alright, so it says we have over 1,000 minutes left of storage. It's 128 gigabytes, so that makes sense. Got the video recording quality set to high, 1080p. Recording is just none yet. Go to PDR. The video overlay is sport, which of course it looks like this. So if we go back and can actually just start recording right there. Audio, video, and vehicle metrics are now being recorded to learn more about data collection and use. Refer to your owner's manual. So it shows us how long it's recording for. And we can always just check the video after. So that's it. Now let's go get some footage for this thing. Alright, so right now I have the PDR, Performance Data Recorder, recording. We have our memory card in there. It's just basically using the front cameras on the car to create an image, a video image. And really it could be used as a dash cam or anything on the racetrack to record your personal best lap times, or if you want to improve on a corner here and there. So it's pretty cool. And I think now is a good time to do a little launch control. So stop here. We have the car in race mode with traction control off. Put on the brake. Wow, so I don't know what the 0 to 60 was there. We're gonna do the timer in a second and try it one more time. But definitely feels fast. There's a lot of tire spin, but it still feels controlled at the same time. So we're gonna go to performance. So I'm gonna try it here. Accelerate to start. Wow, I got a 3.1 0 to 60. That's with a lot of tire spin. This car is advertised at 2.9. And that is really, really impressive. A lot of times it's hard to get down to the advertised 0 to 60 speed or 0 to 60 time. And the Corvette is right there. I mean, that 0.2 seconds is definitely because of all that tire spin, you know? So I'm going to try another one in a second. Try one right here. Looks like it was 3.1 again, so definitely with all the tire spin, it's a little bit hard to get better than a 3.1. However, this thing definitely has some serious balls. I gotta say, when the C8 first came out, I didn't know what to think of it. I didn't know how it was going to drive. I didn't know if I was ever going to get the chance to drive one, especially with the way the production's looking right now. Nobody really knows when they're going to get their car. Like I said, this is part of the Captured Test Fleet, CTF. And to be honest, it is really amazing what this car is capable of. I've been driving around town today. Nothing too crazy, to be honest, but the streets that I have had it on, a few winding roads, but the car has performed admirably. Launch control, as you just saw, 3.1 seconds. That's twice in a row on crappy back streets in this business park here in Miami. With a lot of tire spin, you can hear it. I mean, honestly, I'm blown away. The interior quality, technology, the driving experience, the seats, the comfortability, all the technology here as far as the like the performance data recorder. I have that recording right now. I'll probably stop. It's been recording for 5 minutes. My GoPro just turned off. The driver display area here, this race car inspired steering wheel, it's very comfortable. But as I said, the seats are amazing. You have cooled seats. The AC works great. The visibility is great. I love the heads-up display. This mirror here is amazing. I can just see right through without having any obstructions, without looking at the engine or through this double window effect here that's giving a gnarly reflection. Honestly, I don't know what else to say. The 2020 C8 Corvette Stingray is an incredible machine. It is a true mid-engine sports car. I would honestly consider it more of a supercar, if anything. I'm sure the Z06 is really going to take this up a few notches. However, if this is a base model, you know, it is the C51 package with the 2LT and all that and all the trimmings. This is one hell of a car. And I'm very, very proud of Chevrolet for doing this. This was 70 years in the making. It took the Corvette this long to go against everything it was and become mid-engine. And this whole layout is different. Honestly, if it didn't have the little Corvette logo on the steering wheel or throughout the car, I wouldn't think it's a Corvette. You could, even if it didn't have a Chevy badge, you could put a Ferrari badge on this and I would think this is some kind of new Ferrari model. It's honestly that impressive. And the amount of attention it's gotten today definitely shows just how popular this car is. It might be controversial in some areas. However, I think this is the hottest car of the year. And I can't thank my friend James enough again for letting me take it out and see what it's like to drive. Alright guys, well that should do it for this review of the 2020 Chevrolet Corvette C8 Stingray. Once again, huge thanks to my friend James who's allowed me to take the car out for a couple hours to review it and get my take on what the new Corvette is like to drive and how it compares and differs from past generations of Corvette. See you next time, guys.